So I received a pretty positive response on the Manners in Japan video, so I guess we're doing this again. So today we're going to be talking about buying and selling cards in Japan, which is actually a very different process to that of anything we have in the West. Maybe in other Asian countries where you can sell your stuff to shops that's a bit similar, but even then it has a lot of different steps that I don't really see too much in other countries, so I want to share this with you guys as well. And for the sake of, keeping you guys up to date, the next video related to Japan that I'm planning to make is to explain why Vanguard is so popular in Japan. So if you're interested, once again, do let me know in the comments, because seeing that you guys are so interested in this video is the reason why I'm making this video, and so, we can keep this kind of chain going. But I'm trying to just keep these more interesting ideas as videos, so that's why I keep asking if you guys are actually interested. So next one would be about why Vanguard is so popular. It's going to be talking about age groups and stuff like that, so I think it's overall a pretty interesting thing that I like telling my friends about, so I would also like to tell you guys too. So getting into it, buying and selling cards in Japan. This is something that I at first was really confused by when I first moved into Japan. So the easier part to explain is obviously the buying. So when you're buying cards in Japan, obviously they have websites online which work the exact same way as here in the West, where you essentially just have you can buy cards from their stock, and often you have points that you can save up, and then usually 1 point is equal to 1 yen, so when you save up an X amount of points, you're gonna get a discount. Or you can buy a card from points on its own. I've done that a lot of times actually. And now, while you do have points in the online shops, they do not transfer to your point cards that you get physically, and I'll explain that a bit later in the video. So that's the sense of card shop websites. Essentially, they only really deliver physically. Some shops like Yuyute will have really fancy packages, and they'll give you discount codes when you order cards. But then when you're buying cards physically, when you go to card shops, there's a few different steps. So first, you're going to enter the card shop and you're going to see the various cards in stock. And normally they're going to be put in these things called showcases. And they're called showcases in English and they're called showcase in Japanese. So showcase the exact same way. So it retains the name from English. Now the point of these showcases, especially with Vanguard, is that a lot of sellers will either list things by clan or by set, but the main trend that I see in card shops is usually by clan. So you'll have all the Royal Paladins in several showcases, or all the Dimension Police in several showcases. And then another thing to note in these showcases is that sometimes you'll see the same card, but one of them is a bit more expensive, and another one is a bit cheaper, even though they're exact same cards, same rarity, everything about them is the same. Now these usually are labeled under Kizu Ari, which means they have damage, but damage in Japan is not really damage. If a card has a slight little particle of dust on it, I'm exaggerating obviously, but the level that they say a card is damaged is so little. So you might be saving $5 to $10 on a card just because the shop labeled it as damaged, even though it's a very small thing. The other thing on top, apart from the showcases, a lot of the bulk commons will be placed into boxes on their own. Usually these are either by sets or again by clans. I know some shops put them by clans, some put them as promos on their own. So all the clan promos are going to be in one box. And so it kind of depends on the shop. They do them differently. Some of them just put it all into one place, and then it's a pain in the ass because you have to go through everything just to find one common. When I was helping my friend Jason build his Jewel Knights, I actually had to go through everything to find the Jewel Knight commons, and that was a pain. The other thing with usually in showcase, you'll see double rares and up. Sometimes the more expensive rares, but really rarely, pun intended. But the rares and the more value commons will often be put into a binder. Usually there'll be one of each card in the binder, and then it'll be a price. So you don't actually take the cards out of the binder. You go up to the shopkeeper and you show them the binder, and then you point at the card and you say how many of each you want. So it'll be Ichimai is 1, Nimai is 2, Sanmai is 3, Yonmai is 4, and then if you need more, then I'm guessing you're not using it for playing purposes. So that's essentially how you buy cards. But when you want to buy a card from a showcase, you're gonna have to, you can't just just stand there. You go up to the shopkeeper and you say showcase onegai shimasu, which essentially means showcase please. So you want them to come up to you to the showcase and you show them what you want, because each showcase is locked. Obviously it's locked up, so you can't actually access it because there's a glass and you can't open it. So you have to ask the shopkeeper to come with you to the showcase. You tell them which games showcase you want, because usually shops will have several games. So if you go to this is Torika no Tower. So they would have a showcase for like Magic and DifferentFight and Vice and like Cypher and Vanguard, like all on the same floor if I remember correctly. Maybe not entirely, but something along those lines. So you have to say like showcase onegaishimasu, and like you can just say Vanguard and they'll understand. Like that's enough, right? So then they come with you, and then you simply point at a card in the showcase, and then you tell them how much of it you want. You can even show them like fingers, like how much of each you want. That's it. Then they will take it out of the showcase and they will give it to you. And then they will essentially ask you to jotai kakunin, which means confirm the condition. So if you get told jotai kakunin or something along those lines, then that means they want you to confirm the condition of the card. So you're gonna take it, you're gonna look at it like, I don't really see any damage here, so I guess it's fine. And then you're like, okay, that's it, and then you give it back to them. So then they will go with you to the register, and then they will calculate the price, and they'll be like, okay, here's the price like that you have to pay. And then if you have a point card, then you give them the point card, and they will put the points of your purchase onto the thing. So some shops essentially do like 100 yen is 1 point. So if you buy cards for 1,000 yen, you'll get 10 points. So you get like 10 points on this kind of card. And point cards are really worth having. I'm gonna stress this, like point cards are super worth having. I bought SPs using my points. Like this point card, and I really love this one. I can show it a bit closer, but they actually print your points onto the thing, so you always know, you don't have to ask them to check on the counter. So it's really worth to save up points, because I actually bought SPs, like SPs, expensive SPs, off of my points just by buying cards all the time, because I'm going to be buying cards anyway to build my decks. So that's just like a thing I want to, point out. And so then once you've bought your cards and you got your points onto your point cards, they're going to wrap the card in some nice little like black, usually like plastic, and then they're going to give it to you, and then you can put it wherever you want. That's it, that's the end of it. Another thing to note is that most card shops don't accept credit card. There are some, like the one that I mentioned, Toreka no Tower, that will accept card, but a lot of them do not. So keep that in mind. A lot of card shops will not accept credit card, but some of them do. So that's essentially it for buying cards. I think it's overall not that hard of a process. You can do it even if you're a tourist, which is the nice part. Now, the thing that you cannot do unless you're actually residing in Japan is selling cards. In order to sell cards, you're gonna need this thing called a Zairyu card, which is your residence card. Now, mine is now invalid because I don't live in Japan anymore, so it has a hole in it, but this essentially like is your residence card and has your address on the back. So that's just something to, you have to have the address on the back too, because you have to go to the national ward office, or not national ward office, but your like ward office of the place that you're living in. So for me it was in Shinjuku. And then you're going to get your address printed, you're going to be, it's just like the procedures you have to do when you move in. Like this is just like paperwork, and that's it. But if you are residing in Japan and you want to be selling your cards, essentially what you're going to do is you're going to go to a card shop, and in the card shop they're going to have this thing called a kaitori counter. So kaitori literally means selling your cards. Basically means selling your cards. But how kaitori works is that let's say you have a bunch of foils that you want to sell, like just a bunch of stuff. Like let's say you opened a few boxes, you split your stuff with your friends, and then you have some things left over. So now you want to sell your extra foils, and so you're going to go to the card shop, you're going to go to the kaitori counter. They're going to usually say which games they accept. So like if you see that a card shop doesn't have any stock for Weiss Schwarz, that probably means that card shop will not buy your Weiss Schwarz. But some shops have several, like the Toreka shops, they have several like subsections, so some of them will be more Vanguard focused, some of them will be more Cypher focused, some of them will be more Pokemon focused, so it kind of depends. Some of them will be Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic, etc, etc. So there's a lot of card games. But so you're going to go to the counter, you can always ask if they accept Vanguard or not. Some of them will go like, yes, we accept all Vanguard. Some will say, yes, but only the most recent booster. So it always depends. It depends on the shop, depends on the city, that kind of thing. So then some shops have a wanted list. So actually my main shop that I went to for tournaments was called Batoroko, and so over there they always had this like massive wanted list for every card game, and there you can see like how much they're going to be paying you, the person, for the cards. Now sometimes the wanted list people misunderstand those. When you see these like pictures on Twitter with like a bunch of cards and their card prices, that's often not how much they're selling them for, but how much the shop will pay you for like selling that card to them. So like for example, when I pulled my ZR Drachma, the shop next to me was asking 21,000 yen, so that's about 210 bucks for the card, and so I immediately darted to the shop and I was like, are you still looking for drachmas? And they're like, yes, we're still looking for drachmas. Well, here you go. So, you know, that's how you use the wanted list. So some shops won't accept cards apart from the wanted list, some will accept everything. It really depends. There's also some shops that will accept whole decks, but that really depends on the shop. Like Shaka Shaka used to, now they have too many, so now they won't. So, but that might have changed by the time you're saying this, so I don't know. Anyway, I keep like delaying the point that I want to make. When you're selling cards, you're essentially going to give them all the foils that you want to sell. Usually it's going to be just foils. Like commons they have enough of from opening their own cases. So you give them the foils, they're going to look at everything, they're going to check the condition of everything. That's the important part. If they label that something has damage, let's say you dropped it yourself, then they're going to tell you this has damage. Are you still okay with selling it? Like they might ask you, they might not, they might just say like this is what this is going to go for. So then they give you all the cards, and then what they do is, after they've gone through everything, check the condition, they'll give you a total price, and you can also, sometimes they'll do this automatically, sometimes you have to ask them to give you a price per card. So that way you know how much you're getting for each card you're selling. So then they tell you what the price is, and then like if you agree with it, then they'll give you this massive form in Japanese, and then you're like, ooh, because on this form, you have to write everything, usually in Japanese. Some shops will let you write it in English, and I was blessed when they let me, because God, my address is so long. So what happens is that you have to write your name in Japanese, you have to write your date of birth, that, you know, that's just numbers, but then you have to write your address, and writing your address is such a pain, because you have to write all the little kanji, everything in Japanese with your own hand. You cannot ask the shopkeeper to write it for you, because that's illegal in Japan. So you're gonna have to write it yourself. So I just legit memorized how to write my own address, and then I just kept doing it, even though it took like 10 minutes every time. So you're gonna have to write in your address, and that's just like the part of the official form, and then like sign the form, and then sometimes they'll ask you for your occupation. Like some shops will do that. So for me, like I always put like student, and then I have to show my student ID to like verify that I'm actually a student here. So I'm not sure if it works if you're a student outside of Japan. I've never had to try that because I had a Japanese student ID, so I'm not too sure about that one. But anyway, after you fill that whole thing out, they will take the form, they'll take your cards, and then they'll give you the amount that they told you in cash. So it's not going to go to your point card or anything, it's not going to go to like your bank account or anything, it's going to go in cash, they're going to give it to you directly, and that's it. So that's essentially how selling cards works. Every single card shop usually has a card counter, unless they specify that they don't, but normally they do. So I think that was a very, like, different thing to me. And the main reason why I say it's so different is because in Japan they don't like sell on Facebook, they don't really buy online. Okay, they buy online sometimes, but because it's so much easier to just buy on, you know, physically, there's card shops all over the place, especially in Tokyo. There's just like, there's no real reason to buy online that much, because like people in Japan don't really trust credit cards, and they don't trust like PayPal. Nobody uses PayPal there, actually. That's another thing. But so they don't really sell cards to each other. Sometimes like a group of friends will get like a case together, and then they'll split it. So that's something. But normally, unless you're opening boxes with friends, you usually won't like keep the cards for some reason. You're just gonna go like, okay, I'm gonna sell everything I don't need to the shop immediately, and you're gonna get some money back. So that was selling cards in Japan, as well as buying them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, because this was something that really shocked me when I first came there, because it's so different from the West. Like, I'm used to selling all my stuff on Facebook, and like buying my cards from like eBay, or like, well, not really eBay, from Facebook, and also from like card shop websites, like in Japan. But like there I was like, wow, this is like a different world. So that was like a really interesting experience, honestly. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was very cool, and so just I wanted to share this one with you guys. And so another thing that I guess I can note before this video closes out is that the way that like the card price works is that essentially they determine it like on day one. The shops will all have like a similar price range for each card, and then like they will adjust it the next day depending on like how much players are interested in it. So day one, some prices will be the best they've ever been, some will be the worst they've ever been. Like some GR might be priced way too much on day one, but then it'll be like down to hell on day two, like that kind of example, right? But then, for example, in GPT-14, a lot, like almost every triple rare and above, no, GR and below was cheap as hell, was super cheap on day one, but they were all OP because like there was so much stock because people kept buying so many cases for the Giza pack, but that didn't stop people from buying them out anyway because they're so OP, everybody wanted to build the new decks, and so because of that the stock ran out, and then the shop, like all the shops raised the prices because things just ran out. And so another thing that's been happening with the GZ series is that a lot of sets were selling out and out of print. They were completely out, gone. You couldn't get them anymore. Like every single box was gone, and some shops would save some boxes and then sell them for double or triple the price because they knew that people would pay that, and like instead of buying singles for whatever reason, even though that's I don't know. But so that's just like one thing that I wanted to mention is how things work. Another thing is that you can reserve boxes in shops. Often you'll have to write how many, and then they'll give you like a little slip, and they're like, okay, like come back on the release day, you're gonna show us the slip, and we're gonna give you your box, and you'll pay the rest of the amount. Sometimes you have to pay a deposit, like you pay like 5,000 yen deposit, and then you pay the rest when the boxes come in. But not all shops do that. It really depends. So that's basically it. I think I've explained everything. If you have any other questions relating to how cards are bought or sold, or the card markets, I guess, in the secondary market for cards in Japan, do leave them in the comments and I will answer them to the best of my abilities. But apart from that, I think that's everything I wanted to say. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, do let me know if you're interested in a video on why Vanguard is so popular in Japan, and so I will deliver probably in like a week or two time, because now, yeah, my upload is going to be a bit weird because we're transitioning into the next generation, and so we're going to have to start preparing for that. And while I'm doing that, because I don't want to push G out too much because it's ending, I'll probably do more of these videos. So that's just a little ramble, but if you're interested in finding out why Vanguard is so popular in Japan, do let me know in the comments, and then I will deliver if requested. So that's gonna be for me today. Don't forget to check out the social medias in the description, as well as join the magnificent Discord channel where you can talk to me as well as other viewers like yourself. So that's it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.